standing on a corner in Portland, Oregon. Well, it rhymes, doesn't it? Well, that was just a brief glimpse of some of the things I saw and did in Portland last week. Had a lot of fun, did a lot of shopping, ate a lot of food. It was a great week, and if I repeat myself in this video from the things I've said in my previous Portland videos, forgive me, but it bears repeating. Portland is a fantastic city, especially if you love shopping for music. More record stores per capita than any city in the country, last I heard. So yeah, you've got to put Portland on your bucket list, at the top of your bucket list, honestly. Hell, put it on your pre-bucket list, as far as I'm concerned. Now, big cities tend to intimidate me, and Portland might technically be a big city, according to statistics anyway. It's the 26th most populous city in the country, according to Wikipedia. The population of Portland proper is 650,000, and the greater metropolitan area is 2.4 million people. But honestly, it does not feel like a big city. It just doesn't. I mean, except for maybe the car traffic. I mean, any significantly sized city is going to have its issues with automobile traffic on the streets and the freeways and whatnot. But honestly, it just does not have that big city feel. It's and that might have very much to do with the transit system. The public transportation system in Portland is the best that I've ever seen in any city. I mean, between the multitude of bus routes that cover the city like you wouldn't believe, and the five or six now, I think it is, lines of the Max Light Rail system, and also the Portland streetcar, which does a two-directional loop between the west side of the Willamette River in the Portland State University District and the downtown core and the Pearl District, and along the east side of the Willamette River, which includes the Lloyd District, which is a shopping and business district. Honestly, you don't need to walk more than 5 or 6 blocks, and you can pretty much get to literally any point in the city. And I'm somebody who loves to walk, so hey, that's even better. And Portland is also, if you happen to be a bicycle rider, Portland is a very bike-friendly city. Bike routes on, bike lanes that is, on pretty much every street in town. And if you don't feel like bringing your bike with you, I'm sure there are plenty of places to rent a bike. But yeah, I mean, even if you were to fly into Portland, you book a strategically placed hotel, you don't even need to rent a car, because one of the Max lines goes straight out to the airport. I mean, hey. So if any of you feel like visiting Portland one of these days, hit me up, ask me questions. Maybe we can even meet up there, do some record store crawling and whatnot, and maybe even do a video. Hey, just do not hesitate to visit Portland, especially, as I said, if you love to shop for music. I go to 3 or 4 stores regularly, but there are a bunch more that do they specialize in little niche areas. Like I think there's a shop that specializes in hip-hop and rap. There's one that specializes in punk, and I'm just not into those genres very much, so I tend not to go to those stores at all. Plus, they're smaller stores, so they have a smaller overall stock. in addition to specializing in those niches. But yeah, one caveat though on visiting Portland, be sure and have a monetary cushion of sorts on your spending money, because if you're anything like me, you will probably spend more than you planned on spending, especially on CDs or records or whatever your music medium of choice is. As you will see throughout this video here, I will show you some of the stuff that I bought and show you some more clips of the places that I visited. I ended up with less video than I thought I was going to have, so hopefully I didn't upsell this too much as a travel diary, but I may, if I have enough that I didn't show you throughout this video, I may have an outtake reel. Yeah, I'm a little self-conscious when I'm out in public, especially if I'm holding up a phone, you know, taking videos or pictures, which is kind of weird considering, you know, the way social media is today. You know, everybody's taking pictures or videos of everything and anything and everything. So it's a little silly that I'm self-conscious that way. So, but hopefully in my next Portland video, it will be more of a travel diary. I'll do much more of the mundane, by-the-moment kind of stuff. I just kind of did highlights. But for now, let me take you on a day-by-day breakdown of where I went and what I did in Portland. My first stop was downtown on day one, home of one of the biggest bookstores in the country, Powell's City of Books. It covers an entire city block and is 3 stories tall, so yes, it is enormous. It's easy to get lost in there, which is why at nearly every checkout stand or information booth in the store, you can pick up a map, a fold-out map of where every genre of book is located. The rooms are color-coded. There's the rose room, the gold room, the green room, etc. So you can easily find out, you know, what you're looking for. You can easily get to where you need to go and how to get there. And my first stop, as would probably not surprise you, is the music section. And just the music section alone in Powell's would probably cover half the floor space of any average independent, locally owned used bookstore in the country. I mean, it is just huge, as you can see here on the video. And I won't go so far as to say you could find anything you're looking for in there, because I have, on more than one occasion, I have come out empty-handed and I've been looking for a specific thing, but haven't been able to find it. So it can be hit and miss sometimes. But you will probably come out with stuff that, as I mentioned before, you may not have been looking for. And I did find a few things that fit that category here. First one is Rock Critic Law, 101 Unbreakable Rules for Writing Badly About Music. So I know I have a couple of YouTube friends who might find this book interesting and useful. It's a lighthearted approach to the things not to say in music journalism, and it's a little bit overpriced for the amount of content it has, but it was just fun. The approach that the author took in this book is, as I said, it's very lighthearted and fun and amusing. So I had to pick that up, even though I probably am not going to be a professional music critic. It's still helpful, and it's something that I'm probably going to read a few times. And then another thing was, let's do this one next, MTV Unplugged. It is a pictorial history of the TV series from the 90s on MTV, and it's just, I mean, just look at the format. It's shaped kind of like a guitar with a spiral binding on the edge, and it was only $6.95 used. It was such a good bargain that I had to actually go through. Since it's spiral bound, I had to go through and make sure there weren't any missing pages, because I was thinking, okay, why is it so inexpensive? But okay, all the pages were there, and it's a really, really cool book. I've been getting into the Unplugged albums slowly but surely, and so yeah, that was a very cool find. I really enjoyed that. And another curious book, The Greatest Albums You'll Never Hear. And this is about some great artists of past and present who projects that they were working on, you know, albums that they were in the planning stages and may have gotten partially or possibly even fully recorded, but just were never released for one reason or another. It's just kind of a fascinating alternative history of rock and roll and pop and whatnot. So very cool. A nice hardcover book, $8.95. I mean, and it was published in 2014, so you know, a few years, just a few years out of date. So, but yeah. So yeah, I made some good scores there at Powell's, and yeah, that's always fun. You can easily spend 2 or 3 hours in Powell's, which is why I block out the entire morning for Powell's. Then I went to lunch at one of my favorite places in the downtown. Actually, this is in the Pearl District, which is just north of downtown. It's called the Byways Cafe, and I've been there probably a dozen times, and I have not had a bad meal there yet. What I had there this time was a club sandwich, and they don't do anything unique to it, so it's going to be a little, this is going to sound a little weird, but it was just a really, really good sandwich. It was one of the best club sandwiches I've ever had. And so it's probably just because of the ingredients. The ingredients were so fresh, and you know, the meat was just great. The cheese was fantastic, nice and just very fresh, and the vegetables, the tomato particularly was. I love tomatoes, and I think the tomato was probably the best part of that sandwich. And the bread was fresh. I mean, they do a great job. So if you're in Portland, seek out the Byways Cafe. Have lunch there, or they also do breakfast. I've never had the breakfast there, but I've heard that it's great. It gets rave reviews. So yeah, that's one of my favorite places to eat in Portland. So after my very tasty lunch, I decided to spend the afternoon at one of my favorite record stores in Portland, the downtown location of Everyday Music. There are two locations in Portland. This one is just a few blocks west of Powell's on Burnside Street, one of the main thoroughfares through Portland. And Everyday Music is kind of like Powell's in that it's nice and huge, not as huge as Powell's Books. It's not multi-level, it's just one floor. But the square footage of Everyday Music, both locations actually, takes up probably about the same amount of floor space as your average sized Barnes & Noble bookstore. So it's very generously sized, and one of the interesting things about the downtown location of Everyday Music is it actually consists of two stores. The main store, the larger one, is CDs and DVDs, and the smaller location, which is about half the square footage of the main part of the store, is all the vinyl as well as classical and jazz CDs. So it's very cool. I mean, the size of the layout of the building is kind of quirky. It made them actually physically separate the stores. It's just kind of weird. You know, one of the quirks of a city like Portland is, you know, and the age of some of the buildings, it just makes for some quirky layouts in some places. But yeah, Everyday Music is, when it's selection and price that you're looking for, Everyday Music is the place to go. I mean, your chances of finding what you're looking for are a little bit better at Everyday Music than at Music Millennium, which I'll show you in a few minutes. And I found, as with, you know, pretty much everywhere I went, I found a lot of stuff that I hadn't counted on finding. And these are the few of the things that I found at the downtown Everyday Music. I'd been looking for this collection by the Average White Band, a 2 CD definitive collection, for over 3 years, and I managed to find it. I mean, yes, I know I can find stuff, I can buy stuff off of Amazon, but there's something about the thrill of the hunt. You know, I mean, I wasn't desperate to get this, so, you know, I was happy to just kind of keep my eye out for it, and nothing will beat that feeling, you know, when you finally find something after looking for months and months under the A's and not finding it, you know, finding it one time. So yeah, that's great. They're a great band if you've never listened to them. Lots of funk band, and they're actually Scottish, believe it or not, but they do funk, you know, 70s era funk like nobody else does. It's great. And Liz Wright, her third album, The Orchard, her first album was in my sister's collection, and it was surprisingly good. I really, really enjoyed it, and picked up her sophomore album, about a year ago, and really liked that one too, so I kept an eye out for her third album and picked that up. And haven't listened to it yet. Most of the stuff here I haven't listened to yet, but and then a jazz vocalist named Matt Dusk. I was not familiar with him, but in the store there, I YouTubed one of his songs, and I liked his voice and you know, his sound, his style. It's really kind of throwback to, you know, Michael Bublé and, you know, that kind of stuff. So that's appealed to me. It was only like, what, $3.95 I think I picked it up for. And then this is another one that I had owned this a while ago. Cinemagic by Dave Grusin, a jazz and film score composer, artist. And as the title implies, Cinemagic, this concentrates on his work for films. The Fratelli Chase, the opening music from The Goonies, is on here. So, and yeah, I had this CD, as I said, many, many years ago, and I don't know what happened to it. I must have sold it to a store, which I don't know why I did that, because, I mean, I'd been looking for it for years and finally found it. So yeah, it's fantastic, and I think I paid $2.95 for this. So just great, and a couple of budget 80s compilations, Laura Branigan and Simply Red, although I think Simply Red bleeds into the 90s too, I think so. But yeah, a bunch of good stuff there at Everyday Music. One of my problems with going to record stores is, I mean, first of all, I'll spend hours there. It's easy for me to spend, what, 3 hours at least at the store, but probably a third of that time, at least an hour of it, is spent holding all this stuff in my hand and having to decide how much of it or what to put back, because I've got more than I can afford to buy, or more than I really should be buying, have any business buying. So that might be one of the aggravating things about shopping with me, is trying to decide. But I am getting better at making more efficient use of my time. I've gotten a lot better at when I come home. I used to have buyer's remorse, or the opposite of it, you know, stuff that I wish I hadn't bought, or stuff that I left behind but wish I'd picked up. But in my last few trips, I've actually gotten really good at that. You know, there's nothing I regretted buying from this trip and the last 2 or 3, and nothing that I regretted leaving behind at the store. So yeah, my time deliberating, or basket thinning, I guess you'd say, is slowly shrinking. So yeah. Now, on my second day in Portland, I decided to go to my other favorite record store in town. This is Music Millennium. It is also on Burnside Street, the same street that Powell's and the Downtown Everyday Music are on, but this is out on the east side of town. And I mentioned that Everyday Music is where you go when you're looking for price and a wider selection. Well, if you're looking for atmosphere, the place to go is definitely Music Millennium. I mean, it is an experience going into that store. They concentrate a little bit more on new merchandise rather than used. I mean, they still have a ton of used merchandise as well, but yeah, they concentrate a little bit more on the new stuff. Their prices are a little bit higher than Everyday Music, but it's just, you know, the atmosphere totally makes up for it. As you can see, the layout of the store is just very funky, and I mean, it's a very Portland kind of store. You go into the main entrance, and that is where all of the new CDs are for most genres. And you take a left turn there and go up these couple of steps, and along that entire wall is new releases, both CDs and vinyl, as well as employee favorites, you know, staff picks, as any record store has. And then you go up a little staircase at the back there, up onto a little mezzanine level, and that is where they have some of the vinyl. I believe it's like the budget vinyl, and some of the smaller genres are there, I think. To be honest, I've never taken a really great look there at the vinyl, at least. But they also have country CDs usually, and some world music. That's where they have the world music CDs. And then, of course, as you can see, you can look over the balcony there, back down onto the CD room, the new CD room. But you go back down to the main floor and past the checkout lanes into the next room. You take a little step down into the second room there, and that is where all of the used CDs are for rock and pop mainly. And then you kind of turn around and face the bay window there onto the street, and that is where they have a little stage for live in-show performances. And also there's a section there, that's kind of a rotating section. This time of year they have the Christmas CDs there, but they also have, sometimes they have the soundtracks there, and, you know, sometimes they'll occasionally move stuff, you know, from certain genres back and forth just to accommodate seasonal merchandise and that kind of thing. But anyway, you take another step down into the next room, and that is where the jazz and blues and hip-hop and soul CDs are. And that's, as you can see, that's another huge room, a lot of stuff. And also the classical CDs are there. And then you take another step down into the next room, still yet another room, and there's that's where the vinyl is, in that end of the store. There's kind of one smaller room there, and then you go down yet another set of steps, and that is where the main vinyl room is, you know, the rock and pop vinyl, A to Z, and associated genres. And it is really, it's I mean, I don't know if you'd call it a maze, really, because it's not really easy to get lost in there. But it's as you can see, it's just such a fun store to go into. I absolutely love. And it's not my highest priority stop necessarily, but a visit to Portland for me is not a visit to Portland without going into Music Millennium. I just have to go there. It's just such a fun store to walk through. And as you can probably imagine, I found several things. Calvin Harris's Motion. This is really the only album of Calvin Harris's that I have any interest in listening to, at least for now. I haven't listened to it yet, but it was new and sealed for $6. And I had my eye on this one because of John Newman, Haim, and Gwen Stefani. So yeah, I had to check this out, especially for just $6. And they had a profile a couple weeks ago of Alessia Cara on CBS Sunday Morning, and she seemed kind of interesting, so I got this. Was actually the Target Special Edition with a few extra tracks, $5.95, new and sealed. So. And then a band called Wet 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 is one of my favorites from the 90s. They were part of that new romantic kind of a movement with Spandau Ballet, same kind of stuff. I had two of their albums, as well as a 2-disc greatest hits, but I finally found this one, and this one I think can safely supersede my greatest hits. I can finally get rid of that one and possibly sell it to another store, or sell it to a store used. But yeah, kind of I hadn't necessarily been looking for that one, but I was very happy to find it. And Norwegian, I think he's Norwegian, singer named Sondre Lerche. I really got interested in him lately. He is one of the artists that I tried listening to years ago and couldn't get into. Gave him a try a few months ago, found 2 of his albums for cheap, and I got hooked, so I had to find his next one, Phantom Punch. Have not listened to this one yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. And then this band, Wolfmother, I actually found their first CD in the freebies bin at a local store here in Eugene. So I picked it up, was really impressed by them, so I found their sophomore CD. And then this one is probably my favorite find. I had it on my Amazon wish list for a long time. It is a Japanese import, something that's only available in Japan, Star Wars: A Musical Anthology. Now, I already have all the stuff on this CD on my other Star Wars soundtracks, but I wanted this just because it's kind of a hard to find thing. And it's Japanese import, as I said. Still got the Obi strip there. So yeah, a couple of very light scuffs on it, but certainly nothing that would affect play, and it was only $6, so I absolutely had to pick that one up. So yes, lots of fun to be had at Music Millennium for sure, as is usually the case with me. But anyway, after my morning at Music Millennium, I decided to amble my way back downtown. I had a couple other errands to run down there, and I went to lunch at another one of my favorite spots. It's called The Original, and they call themselves a dinerant, diner restaurant. So it's sort of a vaguely, slightly throwback sort of a diner, but kind of upscale, although the prices are not upscale. They're very, very nice, very reasonable. And I had a burger there. It was a good burger. I didn't take a picture of it because, well, it's a burger. But that's another place that I've yet to have a bad meal there. So yeah, if you're downtown, and it's right along one of the MAX train lines, so if you're downtown, The Original is a good place to go for lunch. On day 3, I decided to go to the other location of Everyday Music, which is over on the east side of town. And I knew that to get there I would be stopping at the Hollywood Transit Center MAX station. And I decided to do something that I had not done before. You might remember the story. It made national headlines back in May of 2017. It was actually a year and a half ago, almost to the day, that I was there. A man claiming to be a white nationalist was harassing 2 Muslim teenage girls on a MAX train in Portland. And as it was approaching the Hollywood Transit Center station, 3 gentlemen tried to intervene on behalf of the girls, and the assailant fatally stabbed 2 of them and seriously injured the 3rd. And there was obviously, right after the attack, there was a makeshift memorial set up there. And eventually it turned into a permanent mural, which I had seen on my last, 2 or 3 trips there, but I never stopped and took a good look at it. And I decided to do so this time. And it was absolutely beautiful. Now, the main part of the mural you can see from the train and from the train platform. But what I didn't realize until this stop here was that there's a whole nother part of the mural. It is on the, there's a ramp, like a zigzagging ramp, that gives people with wheelchairs or people that can't do stairs access to the train platform. And on both sides of each segment of this ramp are paintings, beautiful pictures with a rainbow, a graduating rainbow background, as you can see on the pictures, with text and just beautiful pictures of flowers and whatnot. And it was absolutely breathtaking. I took far more pictures than I'm actually showing you here, because it just went on forever and ever, and it was just actually, it was very, very moving and very touching, and it was just beautiful. I'm so glad that I took the time. I must have spent half an hour, 45 minutes there just looking at it. So yeah, that is one place that I think everybody needs to stop and take a look at, is that mural there at the Hollywood Transit Center MAX station. And another interesting side note is I actually witnessed a quick little fight between a bunch of teenagers. A pretty intense little fist fight there. Fortunately, there were security guards there that broke it up in very short order. But it was a little unsettling that it happened at that same MAX station there. So, but yeah, an interesting little diversion from my usual shopping and whatnot. But anyway, on to the actual music store. I went to, as I said, Everyday Music. This one is on a major northeast southwest, I guess it is, thoroughfare in Portland called Sandy Boulevard. And this store is pretty much just as big as the one downtown. It's as you can see, it's just massive, and but it's only one space as opposed to being divided in two like the one downtown. And yeah, the same kind of layout, and as you can kind of see in the videos between of this Everyday Music as well as the one downtown, it's not big on atmosphere. Certainly not nearly to the degree. It's in a whole nother league to Music Millennium, which is just very much an atmosphere kind of store. But as I said, if you're looking for price and selection, Everyday Music is the place to go. And by this time I was kind of leaning more toward the budget bins. I had spent a little bit of money, more than I had kind of planned on spending, obviously. But still, I found some great bargains. Johnny Cash's American Recordings, I believe that's the name of it? Yeah. I have the second volume of this unchained. I've had it for a year or so now, and so I decided to get the first volume, produced by Rick Rubin, whose work I've appreciated for a while now. And speaking of Rick Rubin, I decided to try another Josh Groban CD, Illuminations. It's produced by Rick Rubin as well. So yeah, I have not listened to this one yet, or the Johnny Cash, but yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. And I found the Essential Barbra Streisand 2 CDs. I found this for $2.50, if you can believe that. Yeah, I mean the CDs are in perfect condition, no scratches on them at all. So yeah, after listening to Walls, I just had to dip further into Barbra Streisand. And then another Essentials, Rosemary Clooney. This was $1.95. I figured, what the hell? And then I could not resist giving this one a try. I've heard about them, but I've never heard any of their music. So for $1.95, I decided to give Why Don't We a try. This is some new boy band. It's an 8-song, well, I don't know if you'd call 8 songs an album or if it's really just an EP. But hey, for $1.95, how could I go wrong? I decided to pick it up, give them a try. I have not. This is yet another one that I have not yet listened to. So, but of my my weakness for boy bands, I figured I'd go ahead and give it a try. Why not? But anyway, after pillaging the bargain bins at Everyday Music, sorry, I'm starting to lose my voice here, I decided to go to yet another one of my favorite lunch spots in Portland. And this one I only discovered a year, maybe a year and a half ago. It's called the City State Diner. And I'm kind of surprised that I didn't discover it until then, because it is coincidentally nestled right between two of my favorite music stores, Everyday Music on Sandy and Music Millennium. And so I could almost kick myself for not discovering this place sooner. But I had one of the best sandwiches I have ever had in my life there, honestly. I mean, just take a look at it. If it looks delicious, trust me, the picture doesn't do it justice. It's 10 times as amazing as it looks. You got your thin sliced turkey and prosciutto, which is a cured ham for those of you who don't know it, along with melted brie cheese, an apricot jam. All of this is on a hazelnut crusted challah French toast. I mean, come on. If a sandwich could do a mic drop, this would be the sandwich. It is just, they call it the Count, which I didn't get until just actually just recently, it's because it's a variation on the Monte Cristo sandwich, Count of Monte Cristo. Clever. And you know, anybody who's that clever at naming their food items, I mean, I'm that much more a fan of the restaurant. So yes, the City State Diner in East Portland, just off of Burnside Street. You've got to go there if you haven't been there yet. And then on to day 4, which was just kind of a cleanup day. I had seen some stuff that I made mental note of at each of the stores, and decided to wait and to see how much money I had left on my last day, my last full day in Portland. So I decided to just kind of go by and take one last look and see if I really wanted to pick those things up or not. So I went to, I think that day I went down to the Everyday Music downtown, and this was tended to be a live CD kind of a day. I picked up several live things. A 5-song Jamie Cullum live EP. I'm a big Jamie Cullum fan. I love his stuff. Well, one of the non-live CDs I picked up was 2 discs of Ella Fitzgerald, 95 cents. I mean, come on. A couple little tiny scuffs on the CD, and I mean, the case was completely smashed. I had to replace the case, but hey, complete bargain. And Billy Joel, a 2-disc live concert, his Millennium Concert. Listened to this the other day. It's just fantastic. I mean, could you expect any less from Billy Joel? Seriously. And then 2 discs live each of Bruce Springsteen. Again, 95 cents. A couple little scratches on the discs, but nothing major. And $1.95 for 2 discs live of James Taylor. So yeah, as you can see, I cleaned up pretty darn good in Portland. Had a whole lot of fun. Yeah, spent probably a little too much money, but I mean, honestly, when you consider that, you know, you got all this music to listen to, it's kind of, you know, the gift that keeps on giving, I guess you'd say. So anyway, that was my visit to Portland in a nutshell, a hazelnut shell, if you will. Hazelnuts are a major Oregon crop, just kind of an inside Oregonian joke. Anyway. But before I go, I thought I would share a couple little miscellaneous things with you from previous Portland visits. This one here was from my last visit. I just forgot to mention it to you in my last Portland video. My host that I was staying with, she took me to breakfast on the day that I was coming home at this unassuming little greasy spoon type place called the Gateway Breakfast House, which is a mile or so from her place. And one thing I didn't realize until we were on our way out was that on a 2012 campaign fundraising stop in Portland, President Obama stopped and ate there. It was just kind of an unscheduled impromptu stop there. Stopped and chatted with some of the patrons and whatnot, and you had, what did he have? A grilled cheese sandwich and a bowl of split pea soup, I think is what he had. But anyway, it was kind of cool. They have a little newspaper clipping framed on the wall commemorating the occasion, and a couple of photos as well. But yeah, in my opinion, no matter how you feel about their policies or whatnot, for me it's just a thrill to know that I have eaten at a place that a president has been to. But yeah, and the food is okay. It's not fantastic, but if you're hungry, it's a place to go to because they have nice big portions there. So yeah, and it was kind of a thrill, you know, just to know that Obama had been there, you know. So anyway, the other little miscellaneous note I thought I'd throw in here was from actually even further back, a trip to Portland even further back in August of 2015, before I restarted my YouTube channel. One of the places that I loved to eat at downtown back then was a place called the Blue Plate Lunch Counter and Soda Fountain. And they would have little, you know, little sliders, you know, the mini hamburgers with a side of mashed potatoes or tomato soup. They had a really good tomato soup back then. And they also had other things on the menu, and they also, as the name implied, had old-fashioned milkshakes, you know, and that kind of thing, root beer floats and that sort of thing. And the only thing that I had back then that took pictures, this was before I had a smartphone, so the only thing that I had that took pictures was my iPod Touch. And I would usually, what I did back then was I would pack my stuff up the day that I would come home and then go into town, because the person I stayed with, their house was out on the east end of town. Go into downtown and have lunch somewhere as I waited for the bus or the train or whatever motor transportation I was taking home. And so I was there at the Blue Plate having lunch and just kind of lingering, waiting for the bus to show up. And it was getting quiet because it was after the lunch rush, and almost as an afterthought, I took this picture. And little did I know at the time that picture would take on a little bit more significance, because the next time I was up in Portland, I had discovered that a month or so earlier, the Blue Plate had shut down. It went out of business, and so that was kind of a poignant moment for me. That picture kind of, when you think about it that way, you know, the picture takes on kind of a sadness. But I just loved the. I am not a photographer by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know anything about, you know, composition or technique or any of that stuff, but for some reason I'm just really proud of that picture. Partly because, as I said, it was just kind of a spur of the moment thing. I just took out my iPod and just decided to take the picture. And also because, you know, in retrospect, that was the last time that I was there at the Blue Plate. So yeah, one of the few bittersweet memories of Portland. Portland has given me lots of great memories. I love the city, as I said. Can't say that enough. If you're a music lover, as I said, you've got to visit Portland. If you do, hit me up. Maybe we can meet up there, go record store crawling, anything like that. Do you have a favorite city as a music lover that you love to visit? Favorite record stores, whether they're in Portland or anywhere else? Let me know in the comments. And yeah, anything about this video or anything at all, comment. I'd love to hear your comments. They're welcome. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. I would love to have you as a subscriber. Thank you so much for watching, and I invite you to visit the other YouTubers whose links I have in my description below. And again, thank you so very much for watching. I really appreciate it. See you next time, and remember, life's too short to be a music snob.